You have driven this city for 6 years and nothing about tonight looks different from any other Tuesday shift you have ever worked. You are 34 years old, behind on rent by 2 months, and driving nights so your daughter can stay in her school across town. Most passengers never look at you twice. You are the face behind the wheel, the person between where they are and where they need to be. Pick up, drop off, rate, repeat. 6 years of this has made you invisible, and invisible was exactly what you needed to be. At 11:43 p.m. a ride request comes through from a pickup point you have never been called to before, a dark street 3 blocks from the highway. You accept the ride without thinking, the way you accept every ride, because hesitation costs you money you do not have. The pickup spot is a corner with no businesses, no pedestrians, and one broken streetlight, and you tell yourself it is nothing. A man steps out of the shadows, gets in without a word, and something in your body notices before your brain does. He gives you no greeting, no name confirmation, no small talk, just a destination and eyes fixed on the window. You catch him pulling his hood lower at every intersection with a traffic camera, and you pretend not to notice, but you noticed. You tell yourself lots of people avoid cameras, privacy, whatever. And you focus on the road because the road is the only thing that pays you. The radio cuts to a news bulletin about a federal manhunt and the passenger shifts his weight in a way your body registers instantly. The bulletin describes a male suspect, 6'2", dark hooded jacket near the highway, and your hands tighten on the wheel without you deciding to tighten them. You have 3 choices: pull over, keep driving, or find out if you are wrong. And every single one of them feels like the wrong answer. You keep driving, not because you are brave or certain, but because stopping on a dark highway with this man feels like the worst possible idea. He speaks for the first time, just 4 words, take the next exit, and his voice is calm in a way that makes it worse. You take the exit without arguing, telling yourself you are just doing your job, but your job has never once felt like this before. The road he directs you down has no streetlights, no other cars, no businesses, just your headlights cutting through the dark ahead. You reach for your phone and he says quietly, put it on the dash where I can see it, and you do. In that moment you know with complete certainty who is sitting behind you, and you are completely, entirely alone with him. You make a decision in the next 5 seconds that will define the rest of this night. Stay calm and give him no reason to make this worse. He asks if you have kids and when you say yes he nods slowly and says he has a daughter too, the last thing you expected him to say. You do not know what he did, only what the radio said, and the man who just mentioned his daughter does not feel like the man in that bulletin. He says, I am not going to hurt you, and you believe him, which frightens you almost as much as not believing him would. He tells you to stop at a gas station ahead, pay cash. He slides to the front, and act like everything is completely normal. You pull into the gas station and there is a police cruiser parked at the far pump, and your heart stops moving for 3 full seconds. The officer glances in your direction, holds the look 2 seconds too long, and you smile the way a person smiles when they are absolutely terrified. The officer gets back in the cruiser, pulls out of the lot, and every muscle in your body releases at exactly the same moment. You get back in the car and without turning around you know the passenger watched every second of that interaction, and approved of what he saw. You just helped a federal fugitive avoid a police officer, and the most terrifying part is not knowing whether you did it to survive or chose to. He starts talking, slowly at first, then more. And you realize the man the FBI wants and the man in your back seat are not entirely the same person. He says he did not plan any of it, that one decision led to another, and that the first wrong turn was so small he almost did not notice it. You listen to him describe the choices he made under pressure and realize you have made 3 of those same choices yourself, just in smaller doses. He shows you a photo on a cracked phone, a little girl in a school dress, and says her name once, quietly, like it is the only thing he has left to protect. You have been driving 40 minutes and still do not know what he did, only that he loves his daughter, he is exhausted, and he is running out of road. You come around a bend and see it before he does. Blue and red lights stretched across the road, officers on both sides, nowhere left to turn. The passenger sees it half a second after you and goes completely still. The kind of still that is not calm but the absence of any option remaining. He says, pull up slow, keep your hands visible, tell them you had no idea, and then he says thank you, which breaks something small inside you. You roll toward the roadblock at 15 miles per hour and every second stretches out, and every thought you have is about your daughter. You stop the car, put both hands on top of the steering wheel where they can be seen, and wait. The bravest and most terrifying thing you have ever done. An officer appears at your window with a flashlight and asks where you are coming from in a voice that already sounds like it knows the answer. You say rideshare driver, picked him up on the app, did not know who he was, every word the truth, which somehow makes it harder to say. Four officers move to the back doors simultaneously, the passenger does not resist, and in under 30 seconds the man behind you for 40 minutes is gone. The back seat is empty and the car is quiet and you sit there with both hands still on the wheel, not sure what to do with a body that was just surviving. A federal agent opens your door, asks you to step out slowly, and calls you by your full name, which means they already know exactly who you are. They put you in a room with fluorescent lighting, a metal table, and two agents who have clearly done this many times and are very good at it. They ask about everything, the pickup, the gas station, the roadblock, and you answer every question completely because the truth is the only map you have. You tell them everything except the photo of the little girl, not because it protects him, but because some things belong to a father and not to a case file. After 2 hours they tell you your account matches the app records, the camera footage, and the passenger's own statement, and you are free to go. You walk out at 4 a.m. into a parking lot that looks like every other parking lot you have ever walked through, except you are not the same person who did. Your car is in the lot where they left it, and when you open the door and look at the empty back seat you stand there a long moment before you can get in. You drive home through the same streets you drove at the start of the night and none of them look the way they looked 12 hours ago. By 6 a.m. every news outlet is running the story of the capture, your car, and your route described in the report, without your name. Maya wakes up at 7 and you are already in the kitchen making breakfast, and she has no idea her father almost did not come home last night. You make her toast the way she likes it, sit across from her, watch her eat. And that is the whole world, right there, in that kitchen, at that table. By noon the FBI spokesperson describes an unidentified rideshare driver as an unwitting but critical element in the apprehension, and you sit with that word. You turn the word unwitting over and over, because the man who kept driving past that officer at the gas station was not entirely sure he was unwitting. You think about the photo on the cracked phone, the little girl in the school dress, his name for her said once quietly, and you hope she knows he was protecting her at the end. At 10 p.m. the app sends your shift notification and you sit at the kitchen table for a long time before you decide what to do with it. You pick up the keys, walk to the car, start the engine, because the rent is due, your daughter needs that school, and the city still needs someone to drive it.